The morning Lucy Bright was arrested, she was wearing the dress she had planned to get married in, not the wedding gown. That was still in the garment bag hanging behind her bedroom door in the small apartment on Ikorodu Road, where her mother had pressed it with a warm iron 3 times that week because she could not stop touching it. This was the other dress, the navy work dress she had worn on her first day at KH Holdings 18 months ago. The one she had ironed the night before because even on the morning she was being walked out of the building she had given everything to, Lucy Bright was not going to look like she had been defeated. She had not stolen anything. She had not seen other men. She had done nothing except fall in love with the wrong son of the wrong family at the wrong time and be exceptionally, dangerously good at her job. The handcuffs were the Blackwood Cole family's final message to her. They did not know that her grandmother had already written the reply 30 years ago. To understand what happened on the night of that rehearsal dinner, you have to understand who Lucy Bright was before she ever walked through the doors of KH Holdings. She grew up in Bariga, raised by her mother and her grandmother after her father left when she was 6. She was the child who color-coded her school notebooks, who kept her grandmother's household accounts in a spiral pad at 9 years old, who could find any document in any drawer in under 40 seconds. She graduated with a first class in economics from the University of Lagos, and she got the job at KH Holdings because her CV was flawless. She kept the job because she was irreplaceable. Her grandmother was a woman named Bright. Everyone called her Mama Ada. She was 79 years old, and she had the energy of a woman who had been waiting for something and had finally stopped waiting. Her husband, Chief Godwin Bright, had died in 1987, 2 years after he made a business arrangement that was never properly documented, with a young man from Lagos named Blackwood Cole Sr. Mama Ada had the documentation now. She had had it for 11 years. She was waiting for the right moment. Her granddaughter's arrest was the right moment. Lucy arrived at KH Holdings fresh from her national service year, recommended by a professor whose son-in-law owed him a favor. She was given the secretary role to the chairman as a temporary position. 3 weeks in, she had reorganized the chairman's entire schedule, identified a double booking that was about to cost the company a major client, created a color-coded brief system that the chairman's previous 3 secretaries had never thought to build, and learned the names of every driver, security guard, and cleaner in the building. The chairman did not tell her she was doing a good job. He started calling her at 6 in the morning. The Blackwood Cole house on Bordelon Road in Ikoi was where Lucy first met the family. She accompanied the chairman home one evening, carrying documents he needed to review. Mrs. Blackwood Cole opened the door, looked at Lucy from head to shoes, and said, "Emeka, your office people should wait outside." She was not asked in. She waited outside for 47 minutes. That was the first insult. It was not the last. Over the following months, as Lucy's work increasingly bled into the household, she became a permanent fixture in a house where nobody wanted her there. The chairman asked her to plan family travel, coordinate household vendors, manage his private diary alongside the corporate one. The housekeeper, Mama Ngozi, started leaving food for her in the kitchen. This was how Lucy learned that the housekeeper had been there for 19 years and still ate alone. The chairman's daughter, Nancy, was pleasant to Lucy in front of her father, and something entirely different when he was not in the room. Lucy began to notice small things. Requests to keep certain vendor invoices off the main system, a pattern of payments going to a supplier she could find no record of receiving any goods. She filed these observations away. She did not yet know what to do with them. Anthony Blackwood Cole arrived on a Tuesday morning in a grey suit with carry-on luggage and no announcement. He walked into the chairman's office where Lucy was going through the week's briefing documents, said, "You must be Lucy. You're the one keeping this place alive," and sat down. She stared at him. He said it again in Igbo, her grandmother's dialect, to prove he meant it. He had been in London for 6 years, the London School of Economics, and then 3 years at a private equity firm. He was brilliant and direct and constitutionally incapable of watching people be treated badly without saying something. He was his grandfather's grandson, not his father's son, and that difference had been the source of tension in the Blackwood Cole household for years. He had not returned to Nigeria because he was summoned. He had returned because of a letter his grandfather wrote him before he died, a letter that mentioned a name, a family, a debt. He had not told anyone about the letter. It started slowly between them. He asked her questions about the business that no one else asked, not performatively but with genuine analytical interest. He deferred to her institutional knowledge. He noticed when she was in the room. He also, twice in the first week, quietly interrupted his mother mid-insult. Not dramatically, just a redirection that stopped the sentence cold. Nobody had ever done that for Lucy in that house. They were careful. They were professional. They said nothing. Then, one Thursday evening, the chairman sent them both to represent KH Holdings at a charity event at Echo Hotel. They sat next to each other for 4 hours. Anthony bought her food she did not ask for because he had memorized, without meaning to, that she skipped meals when she was working late. On the drive home, she asked him why he had come back to Lagos. He said, "There is something here I needed to understand." He did not tell her about the letter. Their third dinner was at a small place in Victoria Island, corner table, 9:30 at night. They had been talking for 3 hours, and neither of them had noticed. Anthony was mid-sentence about something, a deal structure that was not quite working, and he stopped because Lucy had written something on a napkin and slid it across the table to him. It was a number, 2 calculations. The structural problem solved in 4 lines. He looked at it. He looked at her. He said, "How did you?" She said, "You described the problem. I heard it." He picked up the napkin, studied it, set it down. He said, "Lucy, where have you been?" She thought he meant tonight, at dinner, arriving late from the office. She started to explain. He shook his head. "I mean, where have you been?" he said. "All this time. Where have you been?" She went quiet. He folded the napkin carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. She never asked for it back. She never needed to. She knew where it was. That night, alone in his room, Anthony read his grandfather's letter again. The letter described a man named Chief Godwin Bright, who had given Anthony's great-uncle 30 million naira in 1994 as a silent investment in what would become KH Holdings. No formal contract was drawn because Chief Bright trusted Blackwood Cole Sr. as a friend. He died 2 years later. The debt was never repaid. The family was never contacted. The grandfather's letter ended with these words: "I cannot face God with this on my hands. Find the Brights, make it right." Anthony did not know yet that the secretary he had been falling in love with every day for 6 weeks was Chief Godwin Bright's granddaughter. They dated in secret for 4 months, stolen hours at restaurants in Victoria Island where no one from Bourdion Road ever went. Weekend afternoons at the Lekki apartment Anthony refused to move out of despite his mother's insistence. Phone calls after midnight. Lucy was happier than she had ever been and more frightened than she had ever been simultaneously. The secret ended not because they confessed, but because Mrs. Blackwood Cole's personal assistant saw them at a restaurant in Oniru and sent a photograph to her madam before their food arrived. Mrs. Blackwood Cole called a family meeting. It was not a conversation. It was a verdict. She told Lucy, in the sitting room of the Bourdion Road mansion, in front of the chairman, in front of Nancy, in front of 2 aunties who had been called in specifically for this occasion, she said, "I know exactly where you come from. I know the street. I know the compound. You will not bring that into this family." The chairman said nothing. Anthony stood up and said, very quietly, "If she goes, I go." He meant it. They knew he meant it, because he had told his mother 3 days earlier when she called him privately to discuss the photograph. She had not believed him then. She believed him now. They left. What nobody anticipated, not the chairman, not his wife, not Nancy, was how completely Lucy's absence would unmake the operational machinery of the company. The chairman's new secretary, a composed young man named Femi who was genuinely talented and completely lost inside Lucy's filing architecture, found the Meridian folder 3 days before the most important client meeting of the quarter. Meridian Group was a South African infrastructure fund considering a partnership with KH Holdings worth 240 million naira over 3 years. Femi prepared the brief without knowing that the lead partner had changed. The man named in Lucy's brief, a Mr. Adeyemi, had suffered a heart attack in Johannesburg 6 weeks earlier. His successor, a woman named Miss Peterson, had different priorities, a different communication style, and a specific sensitivity about a KH Holdings project from 2019 that the chairman needed to know about before he walked into the room. Lucy had known about the leadership change. She had updated her personal notes. She had not yet updated the shared filing system because she was gone before Thursday morning. The chairman walked into the Meridian meeting and greeted a man who was no longer there. He recovered. He was experienced enough to recover. But the first 2 minutes had already told Miss Peterson everything she needed to know about how prepared the other side was. The 2019 project came up 40 minutes in. The chairman was caught sideways. He recovered again, but it cost him something. Meridian Group sent a politely worded email 4 days later. They were exploring other local partners at this time. They would be in touch. The chairman read the email 3 times. Then he opened his phone and called his son. Anthony did not answer. He sat in his office, the office Lucy had organized, the filing system Lucy had built, the brief Lucy had written 4 weeks ago, and he looked at his phone for a very long time. He called Anthony on a Thursday evening and said, "Bring her back." Anthony said, "For what?" The chairman said, "I need her, at the office." Anthony said, "Are you saying you accept us?" Long silence. The chairman said, "Come back to work, Lucy. The rest we will manage." It was not an acceptance. It was an acquisition. Lucy knew the difference. She went back anyway because Anthony asked her to. And because she had quietly decided that when the next move came, she would be inside the building rather than outside it. Back at her desk, Lucy picked up exactly where she had left off with the supplier payment anomalies. 8 months of records. She traced the payments through 3 layers of shell vendors to a personal account registered to a company named ADC Properties. ADC, Nancy Deli Cole. She cross-referenced the company registration and found Nancy Blackwood Cole listed as sole director. The missing amount was 11 million naira. She documented everything. She put it on a USB drive and took it home. It happened on a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after Lucy and Anthony returned to the house. The chairman was in his study. Anthony was not yet home. Nancy was upstairs. The house was quiet in the way large houses are quiet, full of small sounds that belong to other people. Lucy was in the kitchen reviewing the chairman's brief for a Friday morning board meeting. Her files spread across the far end of the counter, a cup of cold tea she had forgotten to drink, sitting beside her laptop. She did not hear Mrs. Blackwood Cole come in. Mrs. Blackwood Cole opened the refrigerator, considered it, closed it. Then she stood at the counter and looked at Lucy for a long moment. She said, "You know what you are doing." Lucy looked up from her files. Mrs. Blackwood Cole said, "This is not love. You are a clever girl from nowhere and you have found the most expensive door in Lagos and you are standing in front of it. I understand that. I am not judging you for it. I am telling you that the door does not open." She said it without cruelty. That was what made it worse. She said it the way you tell someone the weather. A fact. An ending. Lucy looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, "Mrs. Blackwood Cole, I have organized your husband's life for 18 months. I know his blood pressure medication, his meeting triggers, which clients he needs 15 minutes of quiet before, and which phone calls he takes standing up. I know your daughter's vendor accounts better than your company secretary does. I know this house better than most people who live in it." She closed her laptop. "I am not standing in front of your door," Lucy said. "I have been running the building behind it." She picked up her cold tea and her files. "Good night, Ma." She walked out. Mrs. Blackwood Cole stood alone in her kitchen for a long time. She was not angry. She was something more precise than angry. She was a woman who had just understood that she had waited too long. She called Nancy that night. The trap began the following Monday. The wedding was announced internally at KH Holdings on a Monday. Anthony sent his mother a formal letter, drafted by a lawyer, informing the family that he and Lucy would marry in 3 weeks. The letter was polite. It was not a request. Mrs. Blackwood Cole read the letter twice. Then she called Nancy. What happened over the following 9 days was surgical. A USB drive was found in Lucy's desk drawer during a routine IT security check that was not routine and was not IT security. On the drive were documents from the chairman's private financial folders, which Lucy did have access to as part of her role, but also a folder of personal correspondence between the chairman and a confidential client whose identity was protected under a non-disclosure agreement. The implication constructed was that Lucy had been copying sensitive data. 3 women, friends of Nancy's from her university days, came forward to report that they had seen Lucy at bars in Lekki with men who were not Anthony Blackwood Cole. Photographs were produced. The photographs were real. Lucy had been at those bars for work events she could fully account for, but the framing constructed around them was not real at all. The theft allegation was filed with the police on a Wednesday. Lucy was at her desk when 2 officers arrived. She stood up. She smoothed her navy dress. She walked out with them and did not cry until she was in the car, and no one from the building could see her face. The chairman visited her at the station that evening. He sat across from her in the family room they had been given and looked at her for a long time. He said, "I can make this go away tonight. You know I can." She said nothing. He said, "Leave my son. Sign the separation agreement my lawyer has prepared. Take the settlement. It is generous. Walk away. Build your life. And I will make 1 phone call, and none of this ever happened." He paused. "Or stay with Anthony," he said. "Go to trial. Lose your career. Lose everything. For a man whose family will never fully accept you." He stood to leave. Lucy said, "Does Anthony know you're here?" The chairman did not answer. Anthony did not know his father was at the station. He was at the family lawyer's office, filing for a counter-injunction, pulling every resource he had to get Lucy released. He called his father's phone twice. No answer. He called Lucy's phone. No answer. He did not know his father was sitting in front of her right now, offering her a way out that cost her everything. Lucy was released on bail at 11:15 that night. Anthony was waiting outside the station. He held her for a long time without speaking. She did not tell him about his father's offer. Not yet. She went home to Bariga. Her mother made tea and did not ask questions. Lucy sat in the kitchen where she grew up and looked at the photograph of her grandfather on the wall, Chief Godwin Bright, in his Agbada, 1983. Her grandmother walked in at midnight and sat across from her. Lucy said, "Mama, they are going to destroy me." Mama Ada was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Go and bring me the blue box from under my bed." The blue box had been under Mama Ada's bed since 1994. Inside was a handwritten agreement on 2 sheets of paper, witnessed by a lawyer who had since died. A payment receipt for 30 million naira, signed by Blackwood Cole Sr. with his full name. 3 letters between the 2 men discussing the terms of the investment, and a ledger, not dramatic, not grand, a simple green accounts ledger with water damage on the corner, in which Chief Godwin Bright had recorded the arrangement in his own precise accountant's hand. Lucy read it 3 times. She called Anthony at 1 in the morning. She read him the first page. Long silence. Then Anthony said, very carefully, "Lucy, I need to tell you something." He told her about the letter from his grandfather. He said, "He told me to find the Brights and make it right." "I didn't know you were in Bright. Not until—" He stopped. "Actually, that's not true," he said. "I found out 6 weeks after I met you. I didn't say anything because I didn't want you to think that was why I—" Lucy said, "Anthony." He said, "Yes." She said, "Shut up and listen. I need to tell you what your father said to me at the station." Now it was his turn to be silent. 2 days before the rehearsal dinner, Mama Ada made a phone call. Not to a lawyer, not to the police. To a woman she had not spoken to in 31 years. The woman's phone rang in the master bedroom of the Bordeon Road mansion. Mrs. Chioma Blackwood Cole looked at the number on the screen, an Imo State number. She had not seen this prefix in 31 years, and her body knew it before her mind did. She did not answer. Mama Ada left a voicemail. In Oguta dialect, 6 sentences. The meaning of those 6 sentences, translated, was this: Chioma Eze. This is Ada Bright. Your husband's family owes my family the foundation of everything they have. I am coming to collect. I thought you should hear it from me first, because unlike your husband's family, we remember where people come from. Mrs. Blackwood Cole sat on the edge of her bed for 20 minutes. Then she called Nancy and said, "Drop the case. Drop everything. Do it tonight." Nancy said, "But Mummy," Mrs. Blackwood Cole said, "Drop it." The Blackwood Cole family had organized the rehearsal dinner at their Bordelon Road home, partly as performance, partly as Mrs. Blackwood Cole's final opportunity to manage the narrative before it escaped her completely. She did not yet know that Mama Ada was coming. Lucy knew. Anthony knew. The family lawyer Anthony had retained quietly over the past 3 weeks knew. The retired legal practitioner Mama Ada had found to review the 1994 documents and calculate the compound value of the original investment, with interest across 31 years on 30 million naira, knew. The dinner was warm and superficially cordial. The family was on their best behavior in the way that people are when they are slightly afraid. The chairman made a toast. Nancy smiled at Lucy across the table. The theft case had been withdrawn that morning. Administrative error. The family's lawyer told the police. Documents were misfiled. Lucy had sat in Anthony's car when he told her and said nothing for 60 seconds. Then she said, "Good, now let's go to dinner." Mama Ada arrived at 8:15. She was 79 years old, and she was wearing a cream and gold traditional wrapper and a head tie tied with the specific authority of a woman who had nothing to prove and nowhere to be after this. She was carrying a leather portfolio bag that was very old and very well maintained. The housekeeper, Mama Ngozi, opened the door. She looked at Mama Ada for a moment. Then she stepped aside and said, "Welcome, Ma." The chairman stood when she entered the dining room. He did not know why he stood. He stood because something in the room had shifted, and his body understood it before he did. Mrs. Blackwood Cole did not stand. She had known this moment was coming for 48 hours, and she had spent those 48 hours deciding exactly how she would manage it. Her face was composed. Her hands, hidden under the table, were not. Mama Ada sat down at the only empty chair, which Anthony had placed, with specific intention, at the head of the table's second end. She placed the leather portfolio on the table. She did not open it. She said, "I want to thank the Blackwood Cole family for hosting my granddaughter's rehearsal dinner. You have a beautiful home." Short pause. "My husband helped build it." The chairman said, "I'm sorry, I don't believe we've..." Mama Ada said, "My name is Bright. My husband was Chief Godwin Bright. He was your father's business partner, chairman. In 1994, when your father had a vision and no capital, my husband gave him 30 million naira and asked for nothing in writing except a gentleman's agreement and one witness document." She opened the portfolio. She placed the original agreement, the receipt, the 3 letters, and the ledger on the table, one by one, slowly. "KH Holdings was seeded with bright money," she said. "Your father never repaid the investment. He died in 2003 and told no one. Your mother knew. Your company secretary, Mr. Nnamdi Okeke knew. I spoke to him last Thursday. He will confirm everything in writing." The chairman was looking at the documents. He was not speaking. "My lawyer has calculated the current value of that investment," Mama Ada said, "with compound interest and a proportional equity stake. The number is significant." She slid a document across the table to the chairman's hand. He read it. His face did not change, but something behind it did. Mama Ada looked down the table, directly at Mrs. Chioma Blackwood Cole. She said, very gently, in Oguta dialect, "Chioma Eze." The table was completely silent. "You told my granddaughter that you knew exactly where she came from," Mama Ada said. "That you knew the street, that you knew the compound." One more beat. "I also know your street, my daughter. I know your compound. I knew your mother. I held you when you were 4 years old." Mrs. Blackwood Cole's face, for the first time in 31 years of carefully maintained social architecture, did something she could not control. The girl you have been treating like the ground beneath your feet comes from the same ground you came from, Mama Ada said. The difference is she is not ashamed of it. The room was completely still. Mama Ada closed the portfolio. She folded her hands on the table. I did not come here to destroy this family, she said. I came here to protect mine. If my granddaughter is welcomed into this family as she deserves, with full dignity, full acceptance, and the formal dropping of every false allegation, my lawyer will discuss a settlement arrangement that is equitable and private. No court, no press, no scandal. She paused. If she is not, my lawyer will file on Monday morning. She looked at the chairman. You have 1 week. That is more time than you gave her. The chairman called his lawyers on Sunday morning. The settlement negotiation took 11 days. The terms were a formal equity acknowledgement, a financial settlement to the Bright Family Trust, and a written apology from the company. Private. Sealed. Binding. The theft allegation was not just withdrawn, it was formally expunged. Nancy's embezzlement was discovered 3 weeks later during the financial audit the settlement terms required. This was not Mama Ada's doing. This was Lucy's USB drive handed quietly to the company's external auditors at the start of the audit process. Lucy was not present when Nancy was confronted. She did not need to be. On the morning the external auditors called Nancy into the boardroom, she walked past Lucy's desk on her way in. She stopped. She looked at Lucy. Lucy did not look up from her screen. Nancy stood there for 3 seconds. Then she walked into the boardroom. When she came out 2 hours later, her face was the face of someone who had just understood something they could not undo. She walked past Lucy's desk again on the way out. This time Lucy looked up. Their eyes met for exactly 1 second. Nothing was said. Everything was said. The wedding happened on a Saturday in December. The chairman attended. He was quieter than usual. He toasted the couple with 2 sentences and did not make eye contact with Mama Ada for the duration of the reception. Mrs. Chioma Blackwood Cole sat at the family table in a gelée she had been planning for 3 months. She was perfectly composed. She spoke to Mama Ada once, briefly, near the end of the evening. Mama Ada, when asked by Lucy what was said, replied, "She asked me if I had told anyone about Oguta." Lucy said, "What did you say?" "I said no," Mama Ada said. "I said that is not my story to tell. Then I said, take care of my granddaughter, or it becomes my story to tell." She tucked Lucy's head tie straight. "Numbers don't lie, my daughter, and neither does a ledger." Thank you for listening. Subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it. New stories drop every week, and trust us, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next one.